realizing for the first time in my life, wow, I'm in kind of a dangerous profession. And there's other people out there who are in other professions where they're interfacing with strangers all day long. And, my family was back in Michigan. I'm in Florida. I was single at the time. So it's like nobody knew where I was, when I was supposed to be home. It could have been really bad.
Hello, and welcome back to the WGOAA podcast. My name is Amara Barnes. Today, we're interviewing my friend Avery Piantedosi, who's in Michigan. Avery is the founder and CEO of a company called LOIS, LOIS. LOIS is next level. This is technology that you wish you had on every date or on every first date that you've ever gone on. How many times you go on a date and you had to make arrangements with your best friend to call you at 5:15 with an emergency just in case the guy sucks? Okay, now LOIS is not quite like that, but it's similar. It's a technology that leverages the 911 system with additional features to help give your location as well as make a notification to either an emergency contact or to 911 directly should something go wrong and you need help. So I won't go into too much more detail to explain it. It's better if Avery does that. So let's get started. All right, Avery, you about ready to get started here?
I am.
Let's talk about LOIS a little bit. It's really cool hearing you talk about it when we were at the event last month, and it was a month ago, right? And it's such cool technology that I'd love for everyone to hear about. So what is LOIS exactly?
So LOIS is a safety platform that we built, and on top of that platform, we built the LOIS Safety app, which basically calls and texts a user, and if they don't answer, it will trigger our emergency response, which is to notify a loved one or the police directly.
Okay, so it's like a timer that you set up. Like, let's say you're going to be gone for a while and you want to make sure that you get home safe. And so you set it up on a timer to where it calls you. And if you don't pick up, then that's a problem. And it notifies somebody. Is that right?
Yeah, so the proactive feature and it's an app, so you can download it in both stores. Right now, we're B2B, so we're not selling direct to consumer, but we are selling to larger groups that can then go in and download and get licenses. So you download it, you would set what you would call a check-in, which would be the proactive way to use the technology. And yes, it would call or text you or both at a predetermined time. If you don't respond, we're going to assume something's wrong. You've got a certain period of time to dismiss the alert, or if it was a mistake, you've got, it doesn't happen instantaneously. You've got a couple minutes there. But if you are in trouble, time is of the essence. So we do trigger that emergency protocol pretty quickly. The secondary way that you can use the app is just by touching the alarm button, which automatically sends your geolocation to the police. So that's if you're incapacitated, you're too scared to make a 911 call, you don't know where you are. A lot of people think that when you call 911, they automatically know where you are because of your cell phone GPS. That's not true. So we kind of bridge that gap. And so first way is the proactive way with a check-in. Second way would be, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. Let me hit this alarm button. And that's all the person needs to do. They could be passed out, they could be incapacitated. We know who they are and, everything, where they are, most importantly, and that they're in trouble at that.
Okay. And so, I can speak directly to the 911 dispatch side of this, and that's absolutely true. Like, we don't always know where you are. And it's a really big problem, especially for, a major emergency where you're like, okay, I need you to tell me where you are. And people sometimes can't. And so how is your technology better? Okay, not to say that the 911 technology is great because it sucks. Sorry, guys, it just does. But can you explain a little bit like how your technology is better than what 911 is working with?
So we actually augment what 911 already has in terms of their infrastructure. So I wouldn't say we're better. We just add to it. So what we do to enhance 911 is we're able to tell based on where the emergency is, which PSAP, which public safety access point, which would be the 911 dispatcher sitting in the office taking the calls. we would know based like within seconds where that signal is coming from. We have the latitude, longitude, and we would be able to, based on that, figure out what the closest PSAP is. So at that point, we're able to populate their screens with more information than they would have with a normal person dialing 911 from their phone, whether it's a landline or a cell phone. So we enhance what first responders have. And we worked within the first responders network because it's already built out throughout the entire country. So we figured, well, that's certainly not going to get rebuilt anytime soon. Let's work with what they have. Let's find out what's missing. And we worked with people like you to tell us this is the problem with our day-to-day job. Like we don't know where these people are. We don't have the GPS. We don't have the latitude, longitude. So we worked with law enforcement so that we could build our technology to augment what they are already doing and help them with some extra bells and whistles.
Okay. Yeah. So when someone calls 911 now, it hits off the nearest cell phone tower and then it directs them to that closest PSAP, the answering point. And so once that happens, we have what's called a phase 1 with my agency. And phase 1 is not helpful at all. It'll give you an uncertainty, and it'll usually be like 1,709 meter uncertainty for where they know that you are. That's not helpful in any way, of course. And so then what happens after that, and it takes anywhere from a few seconds to maybe never, it should triangulate with the other towers and be able to kind of get a better location for where you're at. Is that kind of how it works with yours as well?
So the triangulation is tricky because if you think about situations like offices that are in high-rise buildings, for instance, triangulation really doesn't do much. It will tell the PSAP where that general location is, but our technology will tell them exactly where they are in that building. So we can tell them, they're at this building and at this address, and then they're actually in this office. Or if they did a proactive check-in, they can fill in some of that additional information. But we just have a much more pinpointed way to triangulate where the actual cell phone is, as opposed to this sort of bigger triangulation that what's in the framework that's in place does now.
And that's exactly what happens, right?
Excuse me.
People call and they we might have an open line or something like that, and we'll have this uncertainty. It's like, okay, uncertainty of 10, 15 meters. That's pretty good. But if you're an apartment complex that's tri-level and multiple buildings and units, it's like, very easily we could not find you, especially if you're not able to make any sounds, right? So,
or on a golf course or something, like something like that, or in a huge parking lot. I mean, minutes count, as you know, in these situations. So,
right. So when it contacts 911, does it open a line in your cell phone where you might be able to, they could hear you?
Yeah. So what we do is we send a text to voice message, which says the person is in trouble. This is where they were last known to be, any other information that they put into the system. And then we send their geo coordinates. In addition to that, we do create an open line. That's how we get around being a robo dialer type call, which would just, a lot of PSAPs don't even accept that. So we do open the line. So the person who's in trouble, again, if you think about like domestic abuse situations where a lot of these people are scared, it's not that they can't dial 911. It's just they can't articulate what's going on because somebody might be in the room with them wanting to kill them or harm them. So this would be a way that someone in that situation could connect with first responders, even if there was an open line and they couldn't answer, at least in those instances where somebody could say something, the first responder would have something. But again, in the instance where somebody is, say, passed out or has been drugged, of course, they're not going to be able to answer that. But we do create that open line connection. Okay.
So then with 911, it is going to record all the calls. But if you have this set up to dial a friend, let's say, or however that works, would it also have the ability to record any conversations that might happen? Like if they're like, hey, actually something is really wrong. I need you to call 911 because this and this. Does it record at that point?
We have the capability to do it. We just haven't implemented it yet. We have a lot of features like integrations with wearables and recording and video. The technology's out there. We just haven't integrated it into our current version of LOIS, but it is in our future roadmap.
Okay. And you're doing business to business, but it's not available for individual consumers. Is that right?
Correct.
So then you would be selling this technology to like a corporation, let's say, and their employees get access to it. Is that right?
Yeah. So our first customer were social workers who work in the foster care system in Florida. They purchased licenses for their entire social work team of people. Now that could change in the future depending on where we go as far as our business strategy. Yeah. But larger groups, corporations that want to protect their lone workers. And then we also have the ability to white label and sell and license the technology to other tech companies or other safety companies that want to integrate what we have into their existing safety offering.
Awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I wish it was available for individuals as well. That's just such great technology, and we really we need that.
I know.
Like I was in an Uber a little bit ago, and we were stationary for a while. It's kind of a long story, but we were sitting there for a while, and it sent me this check-in message like, "Hey, you've been stationary for a while. Are you okay?" And you could say yes or no. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, yes." I didn't want it to notify police, so I don't know what happens with that. But is that the same technology, do you think, that you guys are using?
No, we're familiar with the Uber technology, and we actually have a plan to approach them to help with their offering. So the problem with their system is when there's an emergency, they don't directly connect to 911. They just, it's a dialer essentially. So again, you're going back to the problem of the phone dialing 911, the person having to be alert and aware and say, "Hey, I'm in an Uber. I think there's something wrong." With our system, it would be automated, and that information, the Uber driver, the license information, everything else could be sent to first responders and let them know there's something wrong. And again, the latitude and longitude updates that we give first responders are real time as well. So if they have the capability of, I don't know if your office has a screen where you can see the little breadcrumbs of where someone is on a map. Some of them, like a lot of the ones we tested with in Florida, are already on to next generation 911. So they have screens in there that actually can show if someone's moving.
That's nice.
So we can update location information, which even a PSAP that doesn't have the upgraded NG 911 system can figure out a latitude, longitude where someone is. So we can tell them if someone's on the move, like if someone's in a car, something like an Uber, we could tell them where they are. So yeah, we could really augment what a lot of these safety features are and make them just much better and much more robust.
Very nice. Yeah. The moving 911 call is the worst.
I know. It's frustrating.
Yeah. Well, and it's scary. You get someone on the phone and they're like, I'm in a car. I don't know where I am. I don't know which direction I'm moving. And we're just kind of, I won't say helpless because our map will update over time, but there's a long delay. Yeah. And so that's tricky. Okay. So then it's tracking you all the time. Is that how it works?
So it would only the way that like your GPS is tracking you. It's not like we have a command center that's sitting there and sees the users in real time at where they are. We're only going to really deal with where somebody is in the case of an emergency. So we work off the cell phone's Wi-Fi technology and geolocation. We are working on a backup for that as well. So it would work without Wi-Fi and without geolocation. We're developing a redundancy system, which will just make it completely next level. And that's probably when we will be more consumer facing. But we can Now I forgot the question. I think I went on a tangent.
Yeah, just if it's tracking you all the time. And are you able to turn it off?
Yeah, you're able to turn it off. Again, it's connected to your geolocation in your phone. Mm-hmm. So most people's geolocation is running in the background constantly. And we're using maps and we're driving places. So it's tracking you only as much as like your geolocation is tracking. But in terms of sending information to the police, we only send that information in the case of an emergency.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, so let's say that you have this set up to notify a friend. Are you able to put specific information? Like you've been a realtor in the past, right? And so you'd be going out and showing houses. Would you be able to put in like your schedule for the day? This is the address I'm going to be at this time. This is who I'm meeting with. Would you be able to have that information readily available so that if LOIS is activated, your friend is going to get your itinerary and be like, okay, this is probably where they're at based on time of day?
Yeah, you can do that two ways. You can go into the app and just set what's called a check-in. It's basically like a calendar entry, or you can pull from your calendar. So let's say you've got 3 appointments that day. You go into the LOIS app, you pull from your Google or iCal or whatever you're using, Outlook, and it will pull that calendar into the app, and it'll populate whatever you put into your calendar. And then there's additional fields. Who are you meeting? Description of the person. Where are you meeting would be in there as the address, but there's additional fields there where it's like, well, if you're in an office building, like what office, what floor, and that detail. I mean, there is a limit in terms of characters because again, of the PSAPs, the information, they can only, take a certain amount of information in, but you can get pretty detailed as to who you're meeting, where you're meeting, and some additional notes that could be sent in there. And that all goes to either your emergency contact, which could be a friend, a spouse, a coworker, whoever, or the police. They would both get that packet of information.
Okay. Oh, that's really cool. Was there something that happened to you that kind of prompted the creation of this? It's so creative and so needed, but did something happen?
Yeah, actually, I was on a showing. So I've been a commercial broker for over 20 years. I do this full time now. So I'm full-time CEO of this company, but in my other life, I was a broker. I started a company in Florida, and I was showing somebody a building, and I was almost assaulted on that showing. And I left. I got out of the situation. I used my street smarts. I was able to navigate out of there, be unharmed, which was amazing. But obviously very scared and shaken up, and realizing for the first time in my life, wow, I'm in kind of a dangerous profession. And there's other people out there who are in other professions where they're interfacing with strangers all day long. And, my family was back in Michigan. I'm in Florida. I was single at the time. So it's like nobody knew where I was, when I was supposed to be home. It could have been really bad. So I have always been very technology focused. My background is not in technology. My degree was in English. And, I was a social worker right out of college, and a teacher. And then I started being an entrepreneur in real estate. But I always was looking for the latest and greatest when it came to technology to help me with my business and my business processes. So I was just kind of a techie. And I looked to see if there was anything on the market that could protect me. And I couldn't believe that there wasn't. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, I cannot believe there isn't a personal safety application that works, that's easy, that's out there. And I was living on Florida's Space Coast, which is Central Florida near NASA and all of the government contracting agencies. And there was just a ton of tech talent that was looking for work there at the time. And I just put together this team and kind of built it.
Just kind of built it.
Just kind of built it. I thought it would be easy. And here we are 8 years later. That's not easy.
Not easy. Easy, huh?
Now I know why nobody ever did it before,
Right.
the way we're doing it. Now there are other like safety apps out there now, and there are things that claim to protect realtors and things like that, but none of them work the way ours do. We do, we do it very differently. Most of them aren't proactive. Most of them, you need to do something in order to trigger the emergency response. And a lot of them are just dialers to 911. So we looked at what was on the market, what was not working. And I was the perfect test subject because I wanted the product. And I'm like, I'm a busy person. I'm running my own company here. I don't want something that takes 10 steps. I don't want something that's going to be hard to do. It's got to be seamless and easy, or no one's going to use it. So that was kind of how we designed it with that in mind.
Is it too easy to activate sometimes? Like, is there a lot of accidental activations?
It's false alarms are just sort of part of the safety industry in general. I'm sure being a first responder know that too. Like there's people who are drunk calling for cigarettes. There's old people who are lonely, sometimes mentally ill people, sometimes calling. And that's all part of it. Even alarm monitoring, like with some of the ADTs of the world, like they get a ton of false positives all day long. Mm-hmm. Everybody has their own way of dealing with it. But it does happen. You do have to use this like you would use anything else. You have to be cautious that it's on. You have to be aware of it. But once you start using the app on a regular basis, it just kind of becomes part of your daily routine. So we don't have too many problems with that happening.
Yeah. Boy, this is really so useful, so amazing. I have a friend who she was attacked in her home, and luckily she had a dog that was helping her to protect her, and he had to he had her on the ground, but then he had to, for some reason, step out of the room or something, and she couldn't actually call 911, but she was able to text a friend SOS. And he knew what to do. He knew to come over right away, and thank goodness. But and she wound up being okay. But it's she needed this. She needed LOIS right then.
Yeah,
and she didn't have it, and she didn't feel safe to call 911. And so something like that is just a perfect example. And we're we've talked about this where you go out and you think you're invincible, and you're just going about your day, and you think it's not going to happen to you, and then all of a sudden it does, or all of a sudden the hair on the back of your neck's going up and you're like, what's changed? Something's going on here. And it can happen in just a second, and it can happen to you. Mm-hmm. So this is really exciting technology.
Yeah. And I hope, we do have a beta program where people, if individual users, like anyone in your network, wanted to try it and use it, we do give out free licenses. So I wouldn't say it's not available. It's not that it's not available for individuals. It's just that's not our business focus at the time being. But we would be happy to work with people who want to try it, who want to test it, because we are continually updating the software and making it better. And we do need people who are willing to give us feedback. So we're willing to give free licenses to anyone who's just willing to give us feedback on the use. So
I'm sure there'd be a lot of people who would love to do that.
Yeah. And of course, groups, if your group wanted to get a bunch of licenses together, we could do that too. We could figure out a way to make that work.
Well, a lot of women watching this, they already work for large businesses. So let's say they bring that to their boss. Would their boss be able to reach out to you and make some arrangements?
Absolutely. At that point, it would be an enterprise deal. And especially a lot of times if there's demand from the actual people working for the company, and many of these companies have an employee benefit package, the cost of this can sometimes be embedded into that type of thing. So absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And even individuals who are interested in testing it. I talk to everybody about it all the time. So yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So do you carry any other methods of self-defense on you when you're out and about?
I've always had pepper spray on me. I've always had a whistle. My fiance is trying to get me into using firearms more, and He has several and is able to carry in the state.
Because you're in Michigan, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He can, and I think he can carry in other states if he mails it or something. I don't know what the legality is, but so I have been using mostly this technology and common sense and street smarts. But that's what I've had since I was in my 20s. I've always had like a little thing on my chain, and it's sad, but it's the world we live in. So
it is the world we live in. Yeah. Right. Very good. So if someone wants to go and check out LOIS, where do they go and where can they see a demo and how can they get that information to send to their boss?
So our website is safelois.com. A lot of people think that the company's called Safe LOIS for that reason. We couldn't get LOIS. So it's safelois.com. That has links to our YouTube channel, which will actually have demos. So I will upload some demos probably by the time this is released. We'll have some on there. I have some that are of our old version, but I want to do some with our newest version. And anyone can contact me at avery@safelois.com. That's my email, my direct email if they want to reach out and be a beta tester. Happy to talk to anyone about it, or if they want to bring it to their employer, happy to have that conversation as well.
Okay, great. And we'll put all the links in the description down below so you guys can go check it out.
Sounds great.
All right, Avery, thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and can't wait to see it.
Same here.